Back in the day, when he was sentenced to death by the people from the sacred land of metaphysics, he met a small black dog on his way. Since then, he and this small black dog have been inseparable, and he gave it a resounding name, Shadow Monarch. But for some reason, just last year, Chan Qingyi woke up to find that Shadow Monarch had suddenly disappeared. Due to the mysterious disappearance of Shadow Monarch, Chan Qingyi was downcast for a period of time. However, no one expected that Shadow Monarch would actually return on its own today. Chan Qingyi composed himself and turned to look. Walking towards him was a burly middle-aged man with dark skin. At the same time, a huge black figure suddenly sprang out from his side and madly pounced towards Chan Qingyi. Oh my goodness! Seeing this scene, Chan Qingyi suddenly gasped and quickly got up to dodge. The man's expression turned cold when he saw the situation. He fiercely yanked the iron chain in his hand. This finally stopped the dark figure in its tracks. Chan Qingyi finally saw the true appearance of the other party. It was a very terrifying big guy. Its whole body was black and shiny fur. Although it had the features of a dog, its body was as strong as a leopard. Its teeth were sharp and white, constantly sticking out a crimson tongue. It looked extremely fierce, completely different from the little puppy Shadow Monarch. I just don't know why. Chan Qingyi had a familiar yet unfamiliar feeling. And the big black dog looked at him with eyes full of heat, as if seeing a loved one. Mr. Yi, is this your black dog? The man saw Chan Qingyi, his brow furrowed with suspicion. Then he continued, if it's not yours, I'll slaughter it. Let's eat dog meat and drink and wine tonight. The big black dog seems to understand human speech. Its hot pupils instantly turned horrifying. It kept lying on the ground, emitting waves of mournful cries. Seeing the big black dog throw in the towel, and Chan Qingyi noticed it again inadvertently. He noticed the scar on its hind leg quite clearly. This cowardly and timid nature, coupled with that scar, definitely Shadow Monarch without a doubt. Haven't seen you in a year. Quite intimidating appearance, but still so cowardly. Chan Qingyi smiled at the man. Hunter Zhang, that's the black dog I raised before. Please release it. Upon hearing this, Hunter Zhang nodded. Immediately untied the iron chain around Shadow Monarch's neck. Then Chan Qingyi took out 2 taels of silver, intending to give it to the other party as a token of appreciation. Hunter Zhang smiled and said, Mr. Yi, you are too kind. Last time you painted the door god for my family without asking for any payment. How can I take your money now? Although he said so with his mouth, his eyes kept glancing at the silver coins in the hand of Chan Qingyi, and he even reached out as if intending to take them. Seeing this scene, Chan Qingyi immediately, without any hesitation, placed 2 taels of silver into Ruijin's arms, and said with a smile, Thank you very much. Goodbye. Hunter Zhang pursed his lips. He nodded with a smile. I worked in vain today. Chan Qingyi was walking ahead on the way back. Shadow Monarch was quietly following behind. After about 15 minutes, when there were only a few hundred meters left to the grocery store, Shadow Monarch suddenly accelerated, swiftly passing by Chan Qingyi's side and rushing towards the grocery store. The residents of Pond Town are very simple and honest. Chan Qingyi has been living here for 5 years and has never lost anything. Therefore, he has never had the habit of locking the door. When he leaves, he just symbolically closes the door. The Shadow Monarch skillfully used his legs to open the door, then slipped into the shop. When Chan Qingyi entered the store, he only saw the Shadow Monarch lying on the ground in front of a painting, looking very devout. The painting itself is nothing special, just a big black dog wearing a pair of trousers, standing there like a person. There are swirling clouds in front of it, and a celestial halo enveloping its back, giving it a very majestic appearance. This was created by Chan Qingyi 4 years ago. At that time, he heard that there were very terrifying Monster King and Monster Emperor in the world. Because he lacked spiritual root and could never cultivate, he inadvertently found inspiration from the Shadow Monarch. He hoped that it could also cultivate and become a generation of monster emperor. Therefore, he specially named this painting the Shadow Monarch. However, when Chan Qingyi had just finished painting the Shadow Monarch, he regretted it. Because when the Shadow Monarch saw this painting, it was immediately scared and cowered on the ground, trembling and chanting lowly. And this disheveled appearance lasted for more than half a year. In this way, a timid black dog, who had expected to cultivate into a monster king. Unknowingly, night fell quietly. Chan Qingyi, who had eaten and drunk his fill in the tavern, was worried that the Shadow Monarch would get hungry and start making noise in the middle of the night. So he found some leftovers in the kitchen and placed them in front of it. Then he went back to his room to sleep alone. Not long after, the Shadow Monarch that had been lying in the grocery store finally moved. Its body was surrounded by black aura. Its dark pupils slowly opened, instantly turning bright gold. A magnificent surge of demonic essence erupted in an instant. However, this demonic essence mysteriously disappeared very quickly. The despicable Crimson Fire Demon King actually joined forces with other monster kings to expose me. Fortunately, I managed to escape. Given time, I will definitely make you pay for what you owe in blood. Thinking of this, the Shadow Monarch couldn't help but bare its fangs. Its golden bright pupils were filled with killing intent and anger. Thinking back to the past, when I first met the master, he had not yet awakened. He looked like a very naive little puppy. Shortly afterwards, he settled in this small town with the master. Due to long immersion in the essence and flow of various paths of enlightenment, in less than half a month he successfully awakened. Later, the master even specially drew a divine picture for himself. With this divine picture, he not only awakened the bloodline of the divine beasts within his body, but his cultivation speed also increased rapidly. In less than 4 years, he reached the level of a monster king that ordinary imps would strive for all their lives. After a long silence, the Shadow Monarch couldn't help but silently wipe away tears. In his heart, he sighed secretly. I shouldn't have followed that old fox a year ago. Although the master has already reached the Monster King stage, he is still not the most powerful existence in the Southern Peaks. The fortunate thing amid misfortune is that I finally managed to escape back. What's more, the master, without holding grudges, has taken me in. Those bastards who were after me. With the master's protection, even if the 4 monster emperors of the Southern Peaks gather, they are still just tiny ants before the master. From now on, I, Shadow Monarch, vow to the heavens that I will never leave the master again. Thinking of this, Shadow Monarch stuck out his crimson tongue and licked the corner of his own mouth. With a look of yearning, he said, When will I ever have a pure heart like the master's? Shadow Monarch, who was full of emotions for a while, waited until his mind gradually calmed down. Carefully, he walked towards the backyard. He lay down outside the wooden house where Chan Qingyi lived, and slowly closed his pupils. After the time it takes for a burning incense stick, Shadow Monarch suddenly opened his eyes, and thought to himself, Right. Didn't the master used to often say, A fair maiden, pure and bright, a noble gentleman's heart's delight. This time I came back without bringing any gifts. Why not go out and search for something tonight? Give the master a surprise. Its heart resides in this moment. A gleam of light flashed in the eyes of Shadow Monarch. Then he cautiously got up and slipped out of the courtyard. On the morrow's gentle dawn, until the horizon softly glimmers with the first light of day, Chan Qingyi woke up as usual. According to routine, at this time, he needs to freshen up a bit, then go to the study lodge to lecture. Oh yes, they all went to the sacred land of metaphysics to cultivate. The study lodge has been closed down. Chan Qingyi helplessly curled his lips, slowly closed his eyes, and prepared to take a nap. But the next second, he suddenly opened his eyes. He turned his head sharply to look at his side. He saw a strange woman lying on his bed, but he didn't know when or why she got there. What is this situation? Chan Qingyi's face was full of bewilderment. Did he suddenly awaken to some kind of golden finger after waking up from his sleep? Looking at the woman with even breathing sleeping peacefully beside him, Chan Qingyi felt a bit confused and pleasantly surprised. And this woman is very beautiful. Although compared to Wu Xuanlu yesterday, she lacks a bit of freshness and elegance, but she exudes a unique charm. Her skin is fair and delicate like jade, her thin lips are rosy, and a soft fuzz can be faintly seen on her cheeks. Her chest is upright, and her figure is slender, simply perfect. Just as Chang Qingyi was mesmerizingly sizing up the beautiful and young woman next to him, her long eyelashes fluttered lightly. Then, she slowly opened her eyes. In that fleeting moment, her eyes narrowed. Then, she abruptly sat up. Where am I? How did I end up here? When she saw Chang Qingyi beside her, anger filled her pretty face instantly. Who are you? And how did you end up on my bed? Do you know who I am? In an instant, the woman asked 5 questions in a row. Chang Qingyi smiled and replied smoothly. Miss, firstly, this is my home. As for how you ended up here, I am as puzzled as you. And regarding your identity, I was just about to ask you the same question. Faced with the current situation, he was very clear in his heart. The more flustered he appeared, the more suspicious the other party would be of his intentions. At the next moment, he heard the woman loudly shout, Quick, someone come! Drag this person out and behead him. Immediately after, there was a thud. Chang Qingyi was kicked out of the room and fell heavily to the ground. At the same time, the shadow monarch crouching under the window quickly got up, wagging its tail incessantly. Unusual light flickered in its pupils, and its mouth almost stretched to the roots of its ears. Its noble demeanor seemed as if it was seeking credit. Was taken out of the house early in the morning by someone. Chang Qingyi expressed great helplessness. How did a beauty end up in his own bed? And it doesn't seem like he has awakened any golden finger. Otherwise, the beauty wouldn't be looking so fierce. She would be smiling and calling him, the master, instead. Just as he sighed, he unintentionally noticed the Shadow Monarch's current posture. Could it be the Shadow Monarch? Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Looking at the shining eyes and open mouth of Shadow Monarch Chang Qing, he quickly rejected this idea. It is simply impossible to believe in the Shadow Monarch, just as it is impossible to believe that I have a spiritual root. So he rubbed his brow, changed into a clean white robe in the next room, and then sat alone at the stone table playing chess. He didn't know how much time had passed. When he regained his mind and spirit to consider how to place a white piece to break the game, he noticed that the mysterious woman had appeared beside him without him knowing, staring intently at the chessboard. What made people feel strange was that the woman's face turned pale, veins bulging on her forehead, and a ferocious expression between her eyebrows. She looked as if she had gone mad. What is going on? Is she sick? Just then, Shadow Monarch came over slowly. When he saw the mysterious woman in a crazy state, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. He glanced at the chessboard with hundreds of pieces, and couldn't help but mutter under his breath. This is not good. Is this human youngster crazy? The master's chess game encompasses countless vitality, and elegance in the path of Tao. Not to mention a mere cultivation foundation stage youngster, even strong experts at the divine transcendence stage or void enlightenment stage would not be able to bear it. Woof! Woof! A moment of hesitation. The Shadow Monarch reluctantly had to use channeling a certain secret method from the depths of memory. He let out a long howl towards the mysterious woman. The woman, celestial spirit, trembled violently. Suddenly, she was pulled out of a certain mysterious realm, her mind and spirit continuously gasping in horror. Oh my, it's too terrifying. If it weren't for the critical moment when the Shadow Monarch woke her up in time, who knows, the next moment she might have had her soul soaring and spirit shattered. The mysterious woman suddenly came to her senses. She turned her head abruptly and looked at the handsome and elegant Chang Qingyi with a look of fear in her eyes. Who exactly is this young man? It's just a chess game. Why does it harbor such terrifying and eerie power? Could it be the hidden grandmasters revered by forebears? At the thought of this, she only felt a chill rising from her feet, instantly rushing to the top of her head. At this moment, Chang Qingyi looked up and smiled, asking, Do you also play chess? The mysterious woman saw Chan Qingye's radiant smile and couldn't help but think of a phrase passed down by ancient forebears. Any reclusive Saint Master's temperament is extremely peculiar. Some people, when angered, would kill in all directions, while others are like an ancient well, unmoved by joy or sorrow, without any fluctuations. And the ugly truth is, often the strength and accomplishments of the latter far surpass those of the former. It is quite evident that the young man before us right now is the latter as described by the ancient forebears. Chan Qingye asked a question. The mysterious woman quickly nodded, and then immediately shook her head. In front of such a reclusive Saint Master, she didn't dare to show off. Shadow Monarch saw the scene, then grinned with a sneer. He thought to himself, "This little human is not bad. Quite insightful." Chan Qingye took a look at the woman with a complex expression on her face, feeling relieved. He has been a chess genius since he was young, winning the National Youth Championship at the age of 10. He has spent 5 years in Pawn Town, studying the chessboard almost every day. In his view, the woman was deeply engrossed in the game just now. Now she is acting coy and hesitant. Obviously, she knows how to play chess. However, facing a grandmaster-level player like herself, she is inevitably feeling nervous. In the midst of chatting and laughing, Chan Qingye changed the subject abruptly. "By the way, can you tell me who you are now?" The woman's voice trembled slightly, as she spoke in a respectful tone. She said, "Reporting back, I am Bingxin, a junior from the Celestial Capital." The Celestial Capital of the Great Yin Empire, Chan Qingye, took a closer look at Bingxin and thought to himself, "No wonder she had such a fiery temper earlier. She must come from a wealthy family." However, when it comes to Chan Qingye's understanding of this world, it is indeed very limited. Since arriving in this world 5 years ago, and hearing many strange tales, he has been hiding in Pawn Town because he cannot cultivate. Now that there is an outsider around, he naturally wants to learn more. Of course, he cannot appear too excited or enthusiastic, or he will be seen as a country bumpkin. After a moment of hesitation, Chan Qingye casually said, "Sit down, and let's play a game of chess." Upon hearing this, Bingxin was momentarily stunned, looking pleasantly surprised. To have a reclusive Saint Master willing to offer guidance was truly her fortuitous encounter and good fortune. "Please take a seat," Chan Qingye said casually. Then, he calmly placed a black chess piece on the board. Bingxin slowly took a seat. Trembling, she hesitantly picked up a white piece and slowly placed it on the board. But the next second, her mind and spirit were engulfed by, suddenly sucked into the chessboard. In an instant, she found herself in a place that presented between the black and white realm. The ground beneath one's feet is all white, while above, formidable black clouds obscure the sky. Faintly, the whispers of the Tao resonate long by her side. All of this makes waves of fervor in the mind, and mind's celestial spirit tremble. Soon, the black clouds in the sky churned. In the blink of an eye, 2 gigantic black and white fish formed and began to spin. At the same time, a vast and mighty force, the sublime power of the Tao, permeated the space between heaven and earth. Bingxin only felt that their own celestial spirit was about to be shattered by this magnificent force. "This miss, what business does your family do? Do you know how far Pawn Town is from the Celestial Capital of the Great Yin Empire?" Chan Qingye made consecutive moves, noticing that Bingxin's gaze was fixed on the chessboard, so he casually inquired. However, Bingxin remained indifferent, seemingly ignoring the question. Chan Qingye furrowed his brow slightly and glanced up. Indeed, Bingxin is the same as before. She seems to be possessed, with a deathly pale face, and sweat constantly beading on her forehead. "That's it. I thought she was just being modest earlier. Turns out, she really doesn't understand at all. She has only played 4 moves so far." Chan Qingye feels a bit helpless. What's wrong with people in this world after all? He felt that the few students he taught before were quite smart. However, when he taught them to play chess, They just couldn't seem to learn it no matter what. Just playing chess? Is it really that difficult? Feeling helpless, Chan Qingyi sighed lightly, shook his head, and left in silence. The melodious and long-lasting sound of the bell gradually dispersed in the misty air, drifting from deep within the surrounding mountains. Even after a long time, faint echoes could still be heard. Looking from afar at the sacred land of metaphysics, one of the 5 enlightened grounds of cultivation in Zhongzhou, mist enveloped between the verdant peaks of the mountains. Golden light soared into the sky. Among them, ancient and majestic buildings stood in great numbers, emanating a vast and profound essence. At this moment, the 7 major peaks of the sacred land of metaphysics, the first chair, stands tall like a towering peak, each sitting in the palace of the great profound on the main peak. They all have white hair and beards, emanating an aura of unrivaled majesty. As usual, sacred land of metaphysics, each mountain peak newly recruited disciple will arrive at the foot of the mountain yesterday, and will undergo the final assessment to climb the sky ladder. The sky ladder has a total of 108 steps. Every 36 steps make a tier. As long as a newly recruited disciple climbs to the 36th step within 24 traditional hours, they can become an ordinary disciple of the sacred land of metaphysics. Progressing another 10 steps will make them a direct disciple, and so on with core disciple, true disciple, and personal disciple. Personal disciple is the candidate to become a saint cultivator. At this moment, half a traditional hour before the end of the second assessment, sitting above the palace of the great profound is a thin-faced old man enveloped by a celestial halo of ethereal light behind him. He appeared to be akin to an immortal who had attained enlightenment and ascended. Yuanjian, disciple brother, are you still brooding over what happened before? The old man in question is Saint Master Chan Xian the Immortal from the sacred land of metaphysics. At this moment, he looked down with interest at the person sitting below. His face was gloomy, with eyes slightly drooping. Behind him stood a grumpy old man, with an ancient sword floating restlessly. Elder brother Chan Xian, you should also be aware of the current situation of Sword Spirit Peak. Although it used to be the leading among the 7 peaks, it is now the weakest. Therefore, in my opinion, Sword Spirit Peak should not participate in the draw in the future. Instead, we should directly select the sacred domain. Yuanjian the Immortal rolled his eyes confidently. Also, Pond Town should be removed from the list. It's been hundreds of years, and not even a single premium spiritual essence has appeared. Although this town is the closest to our Mount Taishan, it's possible that the spiritual meridian below dried up centuries ago. Therefore, it can't be considered a sacred domain at all. No way. I don't agree with Sword Spirit Peak directly selecting a sacred domain. I believe other peaks wouldn't agree either. However, I do support the decision to remove Pond Town. Speaking is Qingye the Immortal, who is sitting opposite Yuanjin the Immortal, the first chair of Daling Peak, one of the 7 peaks of the sacred land of metaphysics. I still remember the selection of disciples last time. When we, from Daling Peak, went to Pond Town to select disciples, to our surprise, not a single person, not even one with intermediate spiritual essence, could be found in the vast town. Elder brother Changqian, I also agree with what Yuanjian disciple brother and Qingye elder brother said. Dismissal. They must be dismissed. Pond Town should have been dismissed long ago. For a moment, the first chairs of the other 5 peaks also spoke out one after another with a very firm attitude. Chan Xian the Immortal had a thoughtful look on his face. After a moment of hesitation, he slowly said, "We cannot dismiss Pond Town. After all, our esteemed Grandmaster comes from Pond Town, and that esteemed Grandmaster has already transcended to the celestial heights." That's true. If that esteemed Grandmaster finds out about this, they will surely be angry, and it might affect the entire sacred land of metaphysics. Alas, being expelled is not an option either. One cannot just accept misfortune upon arriving at Pond Town, especially since the number of disciples under the Sword Spirit Peak, where Yuanjian disciple brother is less than 100. Are we really going to stand by and watch Sword Spirit Peak decline like this? At this moment, Immortal Qingye calmly said to Immortal Yuanjian, Yuan Jin disciple brother, in my opinion, it would be better to slightly lower the threshold for recruiting disciples at Sword Spirit Peak. Otherwise, Sword Spirit Peak will completely decline in your hands. What do you mean? Immortal Yuan Jin immediately became furious upon hearing this. The rules of Sword Spirit Peak were established by the esteemed Grandmaster of Sword Spirit. Although it's true that talents are scarce now, going against the esteemed Grandmaster's will, even if it means my death, cannot be tampered with by anyone. Seeing Immortal Yuan Jin getting angry, Kung Yi pursed his lips and tactfully stopped talking. He knew that if he continued to speak, I estimate that Yuan Jin the Immortal with such a bad temper will have to fight him fiercely again. Although the other party cannot beat him either. The current situation of Sword Spirit Peak is well known. By then, elder brother Changxian will inevitably give him another lecture. It is likely that he will have to send a large amount of cultivating resources to Sword Spirit Peak. Let's just stop here. Changxian the Immortal waved his wide sleeves. Here's the deal. From now on, Qingyang Town and Pan Town will be grouped together. This way, it will not only avoid angering the esteemed Grandmaster, but also ensure the fairness of the draw. No problem. I support the esteemed Master. At this moment, a young man with an aloof demeanor walked into the palace of the Great Profound, dressed in a long cyan cloud robe. With a handsome face and a tall figure, he exuded an extraordinary aura. At first glance, he appeared to be exceptionally outstanding. The person who arrived is none other than Changming Li, the current saint cultivator of the sacred land of metaphysics. He greeted the uncles and first chairs of the 7 peaks respectfully with a smile on his face, holding a volume of flower name list in his hand. Qingye, the Immortal, nodded towards Changming Li and asked the first question. Changming, how are the newly ascended disciples performing this time? Not bad, not bad. Changming Li replied with a smile. Changxian the Immortal interjected. Changming, first chairs of 7 peaks are all present. Why don't you start by giving a brief overview of the data for each mountain peak? Disciple obeys. Changming Li opened the register, looked around and spoke loudly. This time, a total of 179 people were recruited for the 7 peaks. Among them, there are 10 disciples with exquisite spiritual root and 72 disciples with premium spiritual essence. Wait. Jiuju the Immortal, the first chair of Chanlin Peak, interrupted with a puzzled expression. Changming, hold on. How many people have the exquisite spiritual root? Changming Li chuckled. He reported to Uncle Jiuju, the Saint Master. In total, there are 10 people with the exquisite spiritual root. Among them, there is also one with premium metallic essence. The spiritual root is not included in this count. Haha, Jiuju the Immortal laughed heartily. It's truly a blessing for the Taishan sect. I didn't expect that this time we would recruit so many geniuses in cultivation. Congratulations are in order. Changming Li glanced at Yuan Jin the Immortal. Glancing at Changxian the Immortal again, he said to the esteemed master, in fact, among these 10 people, 7 of them are from Pan Town. That is to say, they are all from the Sword Spirit Peak lineage where Yuan Jin, uncle, and Saint Master are located. And the disciple with the essence of metal spiritual root is also from Pan Town. What? How is this possible? For a moment, the palace of the Great Profound, which is as vast as the sacred land of metaphysics, fell silent. The masters present were all wearing complex expressions on their faces. Oh my goodness! When it was mentioned that 10 exquisite spiritual roots, 7 of them came from Pan Town Changming Li, the palace of the Great Profound suddenly went silent. Especially after strong demands were made previously. Several major first chairs, who were expelled from Pan Town. Their faces turned pale, and then green. Constantly looking beautiful. It's impossible. This is absolutely impossible. When I, Daling Peak, recruited disciples in Pan Town 5 years ago, not even one with an intermediate spiritual root appeared. But now, just in the blink of an eye for 5 years, why has there suddenly been so many geniuses in cultivation like Qingye, the Immortal knitting his brows, waving his hands non-stop? If I remember correctly, In nearly 300 years, Pon Town has produced only one intermediate spiritual root disciple. At this moment, the most excited and most elated must be Yuan Jian the Immortal from Sword Spirit Peak, who had been gloomy for 20 years without recruiting an exquisite spiritual root disciple. And now, all of a sudden, 7 of them have appeared. Not only do they possess exquisite spiritual roots, but there is also a rare premium metal essence spiritual root among them. How could Yuan Jian the Immortal remain calm and composed at this moment? Changming, you quickly tell Uncle Saint Master if all of this is true. Yuan Jian the Immortal's figure flashed. Instantly appeared in front of Changming Li. Yuan Jian Uncle Saint Master is absolutely certain. Everyone seems a little incredulous. Changming Li handed over the roster directly. Not only that, these newly promoted 8 younger brother disciples have climbed up to the 72nd step of the ladder. They are not only talented, but also physically remarkable. Upon hearing this, Yuan Jian the Immortal quickly opened the roster. Soon, I arrived at the corresponding names below Sword Spirit Peak. The names of Chen Fengli, Gui Zhao, Zhongyan Fan, and Zhongxian Wei are neatly written, unlike the others. Moreover, there is a re-examination signature from Wushuang Lu behind them. Ha ha! Upon seeing these names, he couldn't help bursting into laughter. The wrinkled old face was filled with a complex expression: excitement, relief, and also shame. I hope there were no mistakes in Changming's records. At this moment, even Chan Xian the Immortal couldn't help but have doubts. Use transcendent awareness to transmit the message. The voice of the esteemed master resonates in the mind.